Welcome to Delta History, where the battlefield speaks and the truth cuts through the fog of war. On the cold, mist-shrouded front lines, what began as a routine patrol flight for Ukraine's first separate counterterrorism brigade suddenly transformed into a high-stakes demolition mission, one that would cripple a key artery in Russia's logistics network. The air that morning was razor-sharp, the kind that stung the lungs with every breath, and visibility was a patchwork of shifting white veils as the river exhaled fog into the low valleys. In just under an hour, a standard reconnaissance sortie evolved into a plan to obliterate the beating heart of the Moscow-Clichy-Uncha supply line, a vital bridge that carried fuel, ammunition, and reinforcements to Russian units at the front. The kind of target that, if removed, could cause chaos not just for hours, but for days. The kind of operation where a single mistake would mean losing the element of surprise, and possibly the operators' lives. Behind the mission sat weeks of accumulated intelligence, but it was one sharp-eyed observation on this particular flight that would set history in motion. It started with an unexpected discovery. Aerial surveillance revealed something suspicious on the bridge deck. Exactly 30 Soviet-made TM-62 anti-tank mines, each packed with 7 to 8 kilograms of TNT, spaced precisely 6 meters apart. The glint of frost on the circular green casings made them stand out like coins scattered across the structure. Through the drone's magnified optics, they almost seemed to breathe in the cold, silent, motionless, waiting. These weren't defensive minefields buried in the earth. They were mounted in a deadly cascade formation, designed to detonate in unison and bring the bridge down if Russian forces were forced to retreat. This was a scorched earth trap, a parting gift Moscow had prepared for the day they could no longer hold this sector. But instead of avoiding this lethal setup, Ukrainian planners decided to turn the trap against its creators, transforming it from a shield into a sword. Their solution was as bold as it was unconventional. Destroy the mines using the mines themselves. The chosen weapon for the job was the Vampire FPV drone, a nimble, cost-effective, and devastatingly precise strike platform, capable of threading its way through steel beams and narrow approach angles where larger munitions could never reach. Weighing just under 6 kilograms fully loaded, with a top speed exceeding 150 km/h, it was built for one purpose: get in, hit the target, and disappear in a blaze of destruction. The plan was deceptively simple. Trigger one TM-62 mine with a small but focused warhead, setting off a chain reaction that would detonate all 30 mines simultaneously. In theory, the result would be enough explosive force to sever the bridge's main support girders without the need to haul in tons of additional demolition charges. In practice, it would require flawless piloting, exact timing, and nerves of steel, because there would be no second attempt. But the Russians had anticipated aerial threats. A 500 MHz frequency jammer was already positioned 200 meters north of the bridge, blocking the standard 5.8 GHz FPV control signal. The emitter pulsed invisibly through the air, capable of killing a drone's signal in less than a second. On the ground, its housing was disguised under a makeshift camouflage net, blending into the snow-dusted shrubs. This could have rendered the mission impossible, but the Ukrainian team had an answer. They switched the Vampire's control system to a 900 MHz LoRa-based military link, a frequency far more resistant to jamming, with an operational range of up to 6 kilometers and superior penetration through signal interference. This wasn't just a workaround. It was a technological chess move, anticipating the enemy's defenses and sidestepping them entirely. The operators knew that in electronic warfare, being one frequency ahead could mean living to fight another day. The attack plan became a two-pronged maneuver. First, a loud, high-flying FPV drone would draw the attention and fire of the Russian MG-3 machine gun post guarding the north end of the bridge, forcing the defenders to reveal their positions. Second, the real Vampire, flying low and hugging the structure's underside, would slip into position unnoticed. The decoy would be the lightning rod. The Vampire would be the dagger. Every second of this maneuver would be recorded, both for after-action analysis and for psychological warfare. Proof that even fortified Russian defenses could be unraveled with ingenuity and precision. The decoy roared over the river at 35 meters altitude, deliberately keeping engine noise at maximum to provoke a reaction. The cold morning air amplified the buzzing growl of the motors, a sound impossible to ignore. As soon as the MG3 gunner opened fire, muzzle flashes strobed in the mist like camera bursts. Brass casings clinked against the concrete parapet, tumbling into the icy river below. In that instant, the operator of the real Vampire dove under the bridge beams, skimming just 6.3 meters above the water. Through the drone's camera, the round pressure plates of the mines appeared as pale, ghost-like circles reflecting in the rippling surface below. The black detonation wires snaked toward the center of the span like veins feeding the bridge's destruction. Every movement of the controls now had to be perfect. A single wobble could send the drone into the steelwork or the freezing river. Bryansk Bridge ambush. The pilot guided the warhead's molded plasticine cone directly onto the dull metal circle of the TM-62's pressure plate. Even through the shaky FPV feed, the mine's weathered casing was visible, its olive paint chipped by months of exposure to frost and rain. The drone's motors whined against a sudden gust of wind funneling through the valley, but the operator's thumbs stayed rock steady. At the command to fire, the cone punched through the mine's steel cover at a perfect 40-degree angle, sending a jet of molten copper deep into the explosive core. The first detonation was instantaneous, a sharp, white flash that filled the drone's camera with blinding static. That single blast set off the other 29 mines in a chain reaction so violent it seemed to rip the air itself apart. For a split second, the bridge shuddered like a living thing resisting its fate. But then the shockwave roared outward, unstoppable and absolute. The combined force, equivalent to 8 tons of TNT, tore into the structure. The blast punched the deck upward in a brutal arc, snapping main girders like twigs. Side supports sheared away from their concrete foundations, spinning into the void. The 22-meter central span disintegrated into a swirling cloud of black smoke and red dust before gravity claimed it, hurling thousands of tons of steel and rubble into the icy river below. Across the valley, the concussion rolled in waves, echoing against stone walls like artillery thunder. Windows in farmhouses 3 kilometers away rattled violently. Russian supply trucks, just 11 kilometers up the road, slammed to a halt as drivers braced for what they thought was an incoming airstrike. Fuel tankers, ammunition carriers, and a convoy of BM-27 rocket launchers that had been minutes from crossing now faced a 24-hour delay at minimum. One drone sortie had just shifted the tempo of an entire front. Russian propaganda was quick to react, claiming Ukraine had smuggled several tons of TNT into the area to bring the bridge down. In truth, the Ukrainian strike had used just 3.6 kilograms of plastic explosive. The rest? Russian TNT, neatly stored inside their own mines, turned against them in one devastating, almost poetic counterstroke. Encrypted Ukrainian comms lit up with dark humor. Operators joked about borrowing the enemy's inventory, noting that Russia's defensive traps had become their own undoing. It was a small but deliberate act of psychological warfare, not only breaking the bridge, but undermining the enemy's confidence in their fortifications. The operational impact was immediate and severe. The only available crane within the sector could lift just 25 tons, far below the weight of the largest broken sections, some exceeding 48 tons. That meant no quick repairs. The crossing was gone for weeks, maybe months. Supply convoys were forced onto a 90-kilometer detour, a route that ran straight through HIMARS engagement zones. Within 48 hours of the bridge's fall, Ukrainian artillery units had destroyed 4 BM-21 Grad rocket launchers and 2 fuel depots, their locations revealed by the new supply bottleneck. In Moscow, logistics officers scrambled to redraw supply maps, a process that could take weeks under the grinding strain of war. Every day lost meant another shipment late, another unit undersupplied, another position weakened. For the Ukrainian brigade behind the mission, the lesson was clear. This was only the beginning. Vampire drones were now receiving frequency-hopping FHSS upgrades to further counter Russian jamming. Recon teams were already scouting the Navia Station Viaduct, the Trupsk Narrow Arch Bridge, and the Pulpino Ramp Crossing, all high-value targets vulnerable to the same kind of strike. What made it all the more remarkable was the cost. Each Vampire drone cost just $3,800 to produce, 70% of its parts 3D printed in workshops scattered across Ukraine. For less than the price of a single TM62 mine, a Ukrainian pilot had crippled a critical artery, costing Russia millions in lost material and reconstruction efforts. The destruction of the Bryansk Bridge was not just a tactical success, it was a strategic message, proof that speed, mobility, and innovation could outmatch heavier, slower conventional forces. The age of lumbering demolition teams and month-long engineering operations was ending. In its place was a new era of war, cheap, precise, and relentlessly adaptable. Somewhere, deep in Russian-held territory, more bridges waited. More convoys rolled along roads they thought were safe. And in the shadows of that war, pilots sat in dimly lit rooms, their hands resting lightly on control sticks, waiting for the green light, because the next strike could come tomorrow. This is Delta history, where precision, strategy, and ingenuity reshape the battlefield.